अगर चेंज हुआ है ये हुआ है तो ऑनलाइन सगळं भेटतं ठीक है आणि तुला लिखित देतो तो चेंज हुआ है कॉलेज अभी शादी मान गया तो ये सारे मांग चैट में हो गया तो मुझे भी डाउट है इसलिए मैंने मराठी में बातें की उससे वो जाता है बंदा गूगल फिर गूगल से काट के आता है होता है अरे कहाँ से ला आनंद क्या दो तरह अंदर बैठे दो तरह अंदर बैठे अबे भाई एक आधे तरह में 11 रुपए दे देता है मुझे डिस्कॉर्ड में उसका अकाउंट है उसमें बैठे मिलो ऐसे सब हाँ चप्पल काढ़ू का एक मैं अंदर बैठा हूँ सॉरी हाँ क्या बहुत हाँ क्या हुआ है वो बुढ़िया प्रोडक्टिव भाई लड़का लात पड़ेगी दोनों हाँ हाँ क्या कर रहे हो ये तुम की मर्जी का लोगों को मजा आता है उसका इंस्टा अकाउंट पे है उसको ए बिगड़े यार थोड़ी देर से बैठ जा घर पे को कैसा कर रहा है तू थोड़ी देर बैठ जा फिर मैं तुझे वापस बैठ देता हूं तो जगह दे दे अरे भाई ये जगह दे मेरा फोन ना तो अपने कमेंट में बना रहा है वो क्या अरे वो ओम की फोटो बना ए मानना मगर ए अंदर बैठने दे मैंने से थोड़ी देर बाद अंदर बैठ 1000 रुपए फोटो ले बाकी अभी लगभग नहीं मिला रुकना भाई बैठने देना बैठने दे नेक्स्ट आने उसको जो कन्विंस करा ना मामा अरे तू ये बहुत दिख रहा है सर ये हमारे रूप से मेरा वॉलेट गायब हो गया वॉलेट देख इसका मेरा वॉलेट गायब हो गया वो मेरा वॉलेट हमें वो आज ये भाई ज्वाइन वॉलेट था अब ये भाई हम दोनों भाई एक साथ के लोग कैसे तो ऐसे ही अरे ये हां भाई लड़का अरे यार लड़का हूं मैं बाहर जब शाबाश हाँ कभी सुनता नहीं आज कर जाता है ज्यादा नहीं सच को पता है सच में भाई बहुत पर्सनल चीज भाई भाई रोज सच्ची क्या क्या दिखा रहे तो मैं पहले बोल रही हूं सीरियसली क्यों नहीं यार वो नहीं देखना था नहीं देखना था वो नहीं देखना क्या क्या बात करता है भाई तुम सीरियसली ऐसा बात करता हूं काम नहीं है जी भाई मैं क्यों भाई नहीं देखना था वो चीज उसमें ट्रॉमेटाइज बट ठीक है ऊपर बेटे ओके भाई एक्सेप्टेड एज हाउ यू आर ये लड़का बन रहा है वी एक्सेप्ट लड़का है मम्मी से बात कर रही थी ने एक्सेप्ट शब्द बोले हैं तुमने मैं मम्मी से कौन है कुछ नहीं तेरा मेरे भाई पता है मैं दोनों स्टोरी नहीं तेरे सामने बता रही हूँ ना मेरी तो गर्लफ्रेंड और उसका नाम बताओ मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड है अंजलि तुम लोग का पार्टी अभी बाकी है क्या? हाँ पार्टी अभी भी बाकी है तुम लोग बार बार उसको भेज रहे हो वो सामान लेके आ रहे हो तुम लोग बैठ के यहाँ पे खा रहे हो क्या है हाँ अभी आएगा वो देखो I'm loaded today huh one after the other he is going and bringing things for you all now chalo let us continue again Done. How much did your mother give you today? I hope that only 5,000 you are able to earn also that much. Huh? Now settle down, all of you. Settle down, settle down. So now, हो गया? Another 5 minutes चाहिए खाने के लिए. Now we were talking about the structure of the retina. What did we learn? Retina has photoreceptor cells. What type of cells it has got? Photoreceptor cells. Why are they called photoreceptor cells? Because they are sensitive to light. They release different type of pigments under the sensitivity of the light. So after the retina, after the 3 layers, we had already talked about the 3 layers of the eyeball. Now next is we talk about chambers. Now let us talk about the chambers of the eyeball. What are the 2 chambers and what about their respective functions? So when we talk about the chambers of the eyeball, check the 2 chambers. One is
we talk about as the aqueous chamber. We talk about the aqueous chamber. Let us talk about the first one, that is aqueous chamber. Wait, what is the location of the aqueous chamber? Aqueous chamber, you have to write down the aqueous chamber is this one. So the location you have to write between the cornea and the lens. The aqueous chamber, what does it contain? It contains a watery fluid. What is this watery fluid? Known as aqueous humor. This is known as the aqueous humor. Now, what does this aqueous humor contain, and what is its role? What is its function? Now, if I have to talk about what does this aqueous humor contain, it has got an adequate amount of water, various different type of salts and ions mixed in it. So this particular fluid, which is watery, remember this particular fluid that I'm talking about as the aqueous humor. No talking. एक और बार अगर तन्मय तुम बात करते हो, now I have to call you here. या तो सोहम, you'll have to come here. Either of the two, you're going to come here. कौन आएगा? तन्मय. हाँ, तो डन किसने बोला? सोहम ने डन बोला. किसने? श्रीराम ने बोला. अभी आ जाएगी. खाना हो गया, अभी नोटबुक निकालो एंड पढ़ो थोड़ा देर अभी. Now, when we are talking about the aqueous humor, what I said, what is the composition of the aqueous humor? The composition of the aqueous humor is contains water, and from where it is released by the cells itself, the eye cells itself, and it is containing water, adequate amount of salts and ions. What is the function of the aqueous humor? This is watery, transparent, allows the light rays to pass through. At the same time, what can be the other function? It is keeping the eye cells, especially the lens, moist. It is keeping this particular region, the iris and the lens, little bit moist. Is it necessary when we talk about the functioning of the eye? Should our eyes remain moist? Yes. If our eyes get dried out, the process of vision also difficult, and at the same time, when we talk about blinking, it's painful. So yes, for all these reasons, we understand what are the two functions of the aqueous humor you're supposed to write. One is it helps in the refraction of the light, allows the light rays to pass through, keeps the lens moist, provides nourishment also to the lens, remember. So that is the first part that I'm talking about. Aqueous chamber. What is the fluid called? Humor. Talk about the second part now. That's a bigger part. This is the bigger part that I'm talking about. What is the second chamber? Known as vitreous chamber. The second part. The second part known as vitreous chamber. What is the location you will write here? What is the location you will write? Between the lens and the retina. Vitreous chamber between the lens and the retina. What does it contain? Same. Vitreous humor again. We talk about vitreous humor. Now, what is the composition of the vitreous humor? The vitreous humor is made up of some matrix-like substance, much denser. It is more dense, like cytoplasm, like matrix it is. It is not watery at all. And it is quite dense, made up of, again, various different type of ions, salts, proteins. So now that we are talking about, then what can be the role of this? Number one, since it has got a whole lot of proteins and ions, it can provide nourishment to the retina. Is it not very close to the retina here? This humor, this substance that we are talking about is very close to the retina. See here. So this retina, what is the retina made up of? What is the retina? Rods and cones. But what type of cells we are talking about? Neurons, no? So this substance, this is the medium which is providing nourishment to the retina. That's number one. Since it is denser, the eye layers cannot collapse. So it is responsible also for maintaining the shape of the eyeball. So when I talk about the vitreous humor, the vitreous chamber means the space we are talking about, remember, between lens to retina and contains the humor. What are the properties? How is the aqueous humor different from the vitreous humor? What I told you just now. What is the difference? What is the basic difference between the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor? Soham, basic difference between the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor क्या बोला मैंने अभी? उन लोगों को भी जागने दो. They are just sitting down. I don't know how much they are absorbing. बोलो. एक difference बोलो. matrix like matrix denser. Function now. Tanmay, function. Aqueous humor, vitreous humor, difference. Function. What to write? Aqueous humor helps in pass through, allows light to pass through, refraction. And इसके सबसे important function, nourishment to the retina, maintain shape of the eyeball. So these are the functions, properties. Remember, these are common questions you will get in your paper. So ये हो गया chambers. Now we talk about the lens. The lens characteristic is what? Biconvex. So shape you can easily understand. We are talking about a biconvex structure. Transparent or dense? Transparent. It is not opaque at all. It is a transparent structure. So now that we are talking about the lens, if you now look into the lens, this particular structure lens is made up of lens fibers, and the lens fibers don't have your division. The lens fibers are the type of cells that we are talking about. They do not show the property of cell division. They do not undergo the property of cell division. In the lens, when we are talking about the lens, the entire lens is made up of fine transparent cells known as the lens fibers. Now, these lens fibers, one special property you have to understand, as long as they are living. स्कूल में भी ऐसे ही करते हो क्या? नहीं करते हो? तब हाँ? No, he wants to give you some comfort. ये तुम बायो लेक्चर के बाद जब वो थक जाएगा ना तब कर सकते हो. अभी तो वो थका, अभी खा पी के खाली बैठा ही है. थका का है अभी. Now, when we are talking about the lens, biconvex, transparent, as long as the lens fibers are functional and alive cell. Now, this type of cells also have the lifespan. Remember some features. I'm saying repeatedly that the lens fibers, when they are functional, they are transparent. These lens fibers, when they complete their lifespan, when they become non-functional, how do we understand that the lens fibers have become or they have died out, non-functional? They become opaque. They become opaque now. They're not able to transfer light. But I said also that these type of cells cannot undergo the process of division. So what do you understand from the property? That once a particular group of cells have become opaque, they have lost their functional property. Can they be naturally repaired like other cells in our body? They cannot be repaired. So now at that time some medical help is required, and there are certain conditions, there are certain treatments by which those dead cells can be replaced, and some artificial lens fibers can be implanted there. So that is some basic characteristics. So one first property, the shape, you understand what is the shape, what is the biconvex. Now you are asked questions, what is the significance of the biconvex shape of the lens? What is the significance? We had already been, so that the light rays can be even more converged. One is the cornea, the other is the lens, which is actually allowing the light rays to get converged and enter and fall on a specific point on the retina. Agar ye particular structure straight hota, then perhaps there would have been a difficulty again for the light rays from different angles, from different surfaces enter, and perhaps they would not fall on the desired portion that you want. So the structure has been made up in such a way, try to understand that we are talking about that this is one convergence, this is another convergence. This is one convexity, this is another convexity, which is constantly adding on the convergence of the light rays. Take one question here. Name two structures. Name two structures of the eyeball. Name two structures of the eyeball which help in. Name two structures of the eyeball which help in convergence of the light rays. Which help in convergence of the light rays to fall on the retina, to help in convergence of the light rays to fall on the yellow spot, right, specifically, to fall on the yellow spot. Right, two structures of the eyeball that help in the convergence of the light rays to fall on the yellow spot. What are the two structures we are supposed to write? Cornea and lens. Lens and cornea, two prominent structures, which is actually helping in the convergence of the light rays. Next. Next. Mention one property. Mention one property of the lens. Mention one property of the lens that results in. Mention one property of the lens that results in the loss of repair ability. That results in the loss of repair ability. What is the answer you write? The lenses are made up of transparent lens fibers. Listen carefully and then you can write in your own words. Lens made up of transparent lens fibers which do not have the capacity of cell division. So this is the property that you have to write. So they don't have the capacity of cell division. So once they are non-functional, they have to be removed or replaced. They cannot naturally be repaired. Write down, write in your own word. This is the concept that you'll have to write. The lens fibers which are transparent. Lens fibers which are transparent do not have the property of cell division. When they are non-functional, they have to be removed or replaced, but cannot naturally show repair. They do not show repair. So this is the basis of a particular condition that humans suffer from, that is known as cataract. So when we talk about cataract, with age, what also happens is the lens fibers lose their transparency and they become opaque. And if it is opaque, what will happen? The light rays cannot pass through, adequate amount of light rays cannot pass through, cannot fall on the fovea, and the vision becomes blurred. The vision is blurred at that time, no? What are the muscles? Now, another question. There are a whole lot of questions from this chapter. Some few will, of course, try to do. What are the muscles which are necessary for the changing shape of the lens? Which muscles are responsible for changing the shape of the lens? Ciliary muscles. Which muscles are responsible for changing the shape of the lens? Not feeling very much? Habibi? You want something hot? Huh? Sinus it is. Now, when we are talking about, name some muscles which help in changing the shape of the lens. That's also a very common question that you are asked. So about the basic structure. Now let us talk about these two major regions. The fovea central is also known as the yellow spot, and now we are talking about the blind spot. These are the last two more regions that we have to talk so far. The eyeball is concerned. What is the difference? I'm talking about a small dent, a depression there on the retina, almost on the horizontal axis of the eyeball. And this particular region, what did we learn from the concept of the rods and the cones? What did we learn from the concept of the rods and the cones? That this particular region, the fovea, has got a high concentration of cones. Just adjacent to it, we talk about a region where photoreceptor cells are absolutely absent. But now it is something like this, that when I talk about this region, this has got a whole lot of neurons. So यहाँ पे जितने cyton है, all these cyton would be having their axons, and the axons are all bundling up this way. The axons are all coming out. And this region is a region where actually there are no cyton. So ये जो region है, इस particular region में we don't actually come across any cyton present, but there are all axons here bundling up. So इनके cytons कहाँ पे हैं? The cytons are all arranged this side. So this particular region, that's why we say that there are no photoreceptor cells, but actually it is just a bundling of axons. Cells are all throughout the retina. When I'm talking about the nerve cells and the photoreceptor cells, are they the same thing? They are not the same thing, remember. So now I'm talking about that what is this blind spot now made up of? What should you understand? This blind spot is nothing but a bundle of axons. And what is this axon containing? Impulses. It is carrying impulses. All these processes, whatever is happening in the retina, they will be conducting the impulses by the way of the axon. The axon is a part of the neuron which helps in conduction of impulse. तो यहाँ पे ये retina में कुछ process हो रहा है. Which process we are talking about? The process of image formation. It is a physiological process which is going on here in the retina, and the cells, the cyton are all arranged here, and from there the axons come out, bundle, carrying information to which part of the brain? The optic. Now we call it as the optic nerve. So all these neurons, rather the axons, bundling up, carrying information. Now this bundling up to form the optic nerve. So this region which does not have photoreceptor cells, we call it as the blind spot, and now the bundle of axons as the optic nerve, carrying information to which part of the brain it should be? Cerebrum. Carrying information to the cerebrum. Do you remember the three types of functions of the cerebrum?
Cerebrum is the seat of intelligence, willpower, and conscious.
Number two, second function of the cerebrum. Voluntary act. Number three. Nay, cerebrum does not contain regulate reflection. You did not go through this chapter at all. Third type of function of cerebrum, that is what we are studying now here. Third type of function, is it not the cerebrum also helping in the perception of vision and hearing and smell and etc.? वो तो हो गया एक type of function. The cerebrum regulates memory, analysis, etc. etc. ये हो गया one type of function. Second. What तीन ही है? In your book it is given scattered इधर उधर. That's why I wrote it also and I asked you also to write it down. In your exam you will be asked write the functions of cerebrum. तो तीन तरह के functions. What did we learn? Number one, voluntary action. Number two, sensory function. तो sensory function के अंदर क्या आता है? Perception of vision, hearing, taste, smell, सब. Sensory मतलब functioning by the eye and the ear and the tongue and the nose and the skin. सब आएगा उसमें. Sensory function. Write it down. If you have not written, write it down. In your book it is given, but it is scattered here and there. If you have not taken a note, so you'll miss out writing down the functions there. Cerebellum is meant for what? Muscle contraction, muscle coordination, and balance of the body. Correct. Balance of the body and muscular coordination. Now that you are writing and talking, muscular coordination, cerebellum is helping you now. Cerebellum. So remember, cerebrum again, take a note. Agar nahi likha hai to likho. So now that I'm saying that this optic nerve will carry the messages to which part of the brain? Cerebrum. And the cerebrum will again process it. Sahi hai, ki nahi, what are the differences? Now the cerebrum, that is what is called the processing of the brain. The information processing that is happening in the cerebrum, and then the information comes back. By what type of neurons it will come back to the target glands, target organs? Effector. So when we talk about effector, what is the other name for the effector neurons? Motor neurons. Motor neurons or effector neurons. Okay. So now that we look into this, so first of all, we try understanding some one or two differences between this and this region. What is this region also known as yellow spot? This region is known as blind spot. What are some differences you are supposed to write down? Yellow spot and blind spot. What are some differences? Yellow spot has got large number of photoreceptor cells. Blind spot has no photoreceptor cells. Number two, since this particular region has large number of photoreceptor cells, the process of image formation can happen nearby. When we understand the entire mechanism of image formation, there are a whole lot of biochemical reactions which are happening here, and the information that has been carried by the way of, or the information which is first of all entering by the way of the light rays, and then a whole lot of mechanism happening. So what is in front of our eyes gets captured here, but in a different way what is in front. Whatever is in front of us, is it exactly what is captured in the retina that way? No. That correction has to be done in the cerebrum. So that is, first of all, we understand this. Message has to be carried by optic nerve, goes to the cerebrum, then the correction hua, and then the correction will send the commands from the brain to different parts of our body, because I see the pencil box, and if the image correction is not done by the brain, then I try to hold it also in the upside manner. But I'm not trying to hold it in the upside manner. I'm trying to hold it in the, I'm trying to hold it in the right side, on the right position, also the right distance also. So this processing and the correction is all done in the cerebrum. So now we are going to first of all write down two differences between the yellow spot and the blind spot, and after that we'll learn what are the major steps that you should write about mechanism of vision, which comes in your paper for 2 to 3 marks. Mechanism of vision. First of all, write down two differences between yellow spot and blind spot. What are the three terms for the yellow spot? What are the alternate two more terms we have studied? Macular lutea, fovea, macular lutea, same thing. Even in the paper, you come across this term. Dekho, two differences between yellow spot and blind spot. Two differences between yellow spot and blind spot. Yellow spot and blind spot. Make a column and write what are the two differences I told you. Make a table to write down the two major differences. चलो ध्यान दीजिए राइट क्या लिखना है फर्स्ट पॉइंट क्या लिखना है सेंसरी सेल हाँ फोटोरिसेप्टर सेल fovea in the yellow spot present on the white spot I'm sorry blind spot it is absent photoreceptor cells in the yellow spot maximum number of photoreceptor cells photoreceptor cells absent. Second difference, yellow spot, it is the site of best vision. Best vision, brightest vision also you can write. Best vision matlab kya? If the light rays are falling at this point only, then only the vision is clear. Otherwise there will be blurred vision or so many other defects in vision. So now for yellow spot, the second difference you write, the region of best vision. Blind spot, sight region is different. So that is the second point. Did you write? And for the blind spot, you are supposed to write region of no vision. There is no, the image is not formed there at all. There is no image formation at that point. There is no image formation at that point at all. Next is, if you want to write, there are another 4-5 differences, but one more difference if you want to write, for yellow spot, write down. For yellow spot, you may write down contains of this particular region, yellow spot, contains both cytone and exon. Contains both cytone and exon. Cytones are also in bundles there. Cytones are also in bundles. Cytone and exon both. Ganglions. But here don't write ganglions. Yahan pe ganglions. Ganglions are there in the retina all throughout. But in the yellow spot, you cannot only write that ganglions are there. We cannot write about the ganglions here. Here you will write both cytone and exon present. Blind spot, bundle of exons. Yellow spot mein both cytone and exon present. Only axons. Bundle of contains the neuron of the optic side. Only axons forming the optic nerve. Can you write? Location, how do you write the location? Location is the spot at the not at the back of the eye. Location, if at all you are asked, location is not exactly back of the eye. You have to write what is the location. You are asked also. Write down the specific location and function. Then what will you write? Yellow spot lies at the horizontal axis of the eyeball. That is what you are supposed to write. Horizontal axis of the eyeball, and blind spot lies adjacent to the yellow spot. Horizontal axis of the eyeball. Horizontal axis of the eyeball. Tanmay, likho na. What about that? Adjacent to the yellow spot. Adjacent to the yellow spot. Okay, so you are asked also about the location of yellow spot. This is what you have to write. Horizontal axis of the eyeball. Always remember this. Okay, now next is we have to learn what are some of the steps. So what happens actually is when we are talking about the mechanism of vision, what is happening? Some functions are happening, some processes are happening in the retina. So we now talk about how exactly the process of image formation happens in the retina. So which is the part of the eye where the image is formed of what is present in front of us. So the image is formed where? Which layer are we talking about? Retina. So basically, what is the simple concept for you to understand? What are some of the steps happening? First of all, we understand the light rays. Reflected light rays entering or striking the cornea. And since the cornea is transparent, then the light rays would be entering. But just in front of the cornea also, there is a thin membrane, which is also transparent. So in front of the cornea, if I talk about just in front of the cornea, exactly here, when we talk about the bulge here, so exactly in front of the cornea, we are going to talk about again one more transparent layer, and that's what's known as conjunctiva. So conjunctiva basically comes as an accessory structure also. So where is it present? Conjunctiva just in front of the cornea, and it is just also on the inner side connected to the eyelids. So what I'm saying, what is the location of the conjunctiva? In front of the cornea. In front of the cornea. So if I believe that this is the cornea, if this is the cornea that we are considering, then just in front of the cornea, we are to understand that there is a fine, thin, transparent layer almost in connection with the eyelids. These are the eyelids. They are very close to the cornea and almost in connection with the eyelids. Is this a transparent layer? Yes, this is also transparent. So when you have to understand what is the path through which the light passes, number one, so here is the conjunctiva right in front. After conjunctiva, which part are you supposed to mention? Cornea. After that, which part you are supposed to mention? The aqueous chamber. Then concept part? Lens. Pupil. Then lens. And then vitreous chamber to now fall on the retina. So what is the sequence we are talking about? What are the sequence? What is the sequence in which the light rays will follow? The path through which the light rays will take. Number one, conjunctiva, cornea, aqueous humor, aqueous chamber, rather. Then the pupil, then the lens. Pupil kahan pe hai? What is pupil? I told you. The pupil is this particular region. No, ye wala jo particular region tha between the iris. In front of the lens, the space in front of the lens between the iris, which is allowing the light to enter. देखो तुम्हारे diagram में है कि नहीं pupil? Underline करो. All these parts you should know. So what is pupil? Pupil is the part of the eye right in front of the lens between the iris. That small space left. So that is what is meant for entry of the light rays. Okay. So now we talk about, yes, the light will pass through the lens, vitreous humor, vitreous chamber to fall on the retina. Now next what? The light rays entering and falling on the retina. Now the moment the light rays strike the retina, a whole lot of changes would happen. What are some of the prominent changes? Prominent changes are that these rods, the rods and the cones, they start getting stimulated. Now that they start getting stimulated, we now also have to understand that the process of depolarization and action potential, all this happens. So itna detailed processes you don't need, but just the terms, of course, you have to mention. So now that the light rays are passing, and now that the light rays have come in contact with the retinal photoreceptor cells, or the photoreceptor cells have received the light, now next what? These photoreceptor cells will get into some function. What is the prominent function? They will need to start with release of the pigments, release of their characteristic pigments. Now that they release their characteristic pigments, and then some whole lot of biochemical reactions would happen. So what is the first aspect for you to understand? Now that the pigments are released, what will happen? As the pigments are released, it is some nervous impulses getting changed. So now you understand when I say nervous impulse, ये जो neurons है यहाँ पे, there's a whole lot of ionic changes now. Already the concept of nerve impulse transmission you have understood, no? When I say transmission of nerve impulse, if you remember the concept, when I say transmission of nerve impulse, you understand some ions are entering, some ions are going out. So इसी तरह से a whole lot of changes are also happening in all these neurons, and the light rays are maximally falling on this, triggering a whole lot of release of their respective pigments from the rods and the cones. And because of these changes, action potentials are initiated. What is the meaning of action potentials? वही entry and exit of the ions. So ये entry and exit of the ions हो रहा है, all this part. This information now is carried by the, now this is the impulse. When I say information, matlab whatever type of impulses are generated because of the light rays hitting the retina, this impulse will be now carried. Can the optic nerve carry the light rays? No, the optic nerve cannot carry the light rays. What type of information the optic nerve is carrying? Optic nerve is carrying information that what are some of the ionic changes that is happening in the photoreceptor cells here. That type of information only it is carried. Now it carries information to the cerebrum, and the cerebrum does all the processing, and the commands come back. So by the time the commands come back, is this inverted structure going to get corrected here? No, the inverted structure तो ऐसा ही रहता है, but now that the commands are coming back to our eyes and other effector organs, that can be our hands, our face, our legs, and this inverted image we are able to perceive in a correct manner. So that is what is because of the processing of the brain. So what is the sequence I told you? The light rays as they enter, release of the pigments here, release of the pigments, and the energy of the light will be responsible for a whole lot of this type of ionic imbalances or changes that will take place. And उसी को हम impulses बोल रहे हैं. That is what is the impulse and the action potential. Impulse is now carried by the way of the optic nerve. Conjunctiva पहले है, सबसे first part है conjunctiva, then cornea, then aqueous humor, aqueous chamber, and then pupil. You are asked also, this sort of a question will always come where the terms will be all in a different unarranged sequence, and you'll have to sequence, put them in a correct sequence. So what is the correct sequence? Take it down in case there's a confusion. Mention the pathway. Mention the pathway in which the light enters into the eyeball. Mention the pathway in which the light enters into the eyeball. ये pathway पूरा clear होना चाहिए. No confusion. So the pathway always is, you are first of all talking about the conjunctiva. This is followed by the cornea. This is followed by the aqueous humor or the aqueous chamber. This is followed by the pupil. This is followed by the lens. Then you talk about the vitreous chamber, and then to fall on the retina. And that also, when will we have clear vision? Only when the light rays fall on the yellow spot of the retina. Only then. We'll understand some eye defects where if, bolo. कॉर्निया के बाद कैसे प्यूपल आएगा? पहले एक्वस चेंबर आएगा। देखो डायग्राम में, कॉर्निया के बाद पहले आएगा एक्वस चेंबर। कॉर्निया ये है, दिस वाइट पार्ट, उसके बाद दिस स्पेस, नो प्यूपल इज जस्ट इन, ये जो लाइट ब्राउन स्पेस दिख रहा है, दिस इज द एक्वस चेंबर। एंड आफ्टर दैट आएगा प्यूपल। प्यूपल इज जस्ट अ स्पेस इन फ्रंट ऑफ द लेंस। पहले एक्वस चेंबर, उसके बाद प्यूपल, उसके बाद लेंस। ठीक है। Now next we are going to write down the steps of image formation. देखो, mechanism of image formation. Mechanism of image formation. What are the steps of image formation? What are the steps of image formation? Write down. The first step, we will put the head, entry of light rays. Entry of light rays. So under 4 steps, you are going to write. Under 4 steps, you are going to write down the mechanism of vision. What is the first step you write? The first step is entry of light rays. Under this, you write entry of light rays. The reflected light rays. The reflected light rays. The reflected light rays. The reflected light rays are captured by the eye. By the eye. And pass through the conjunctiva, pass through the conjunctiva, cornea, aqueous chamber, conjunctiva, cornea, the same thing that we have written just now. Conjunctiva, cornea, aqueous chamber, pupil, lens, vitreous chamber, to fall on the retina. To fall on the retina. The light rays continue. I'll tell you when we have to write on the second head. The light rays, as they pass through the cornea and lens, show convergence. Show convergence. Lens, show convergence. Show convergence. Next sentence, continue. The light rays fall on a specific region. Light rays fall on a specific region of the retina, that is the yellow spot. Next heading you write, next heading you will write focusing of image. Next, focusing of image. Under this you write the light rays when focused on the retina, the light rays when focused on the retina generate impulses in the rods and cones. Generate impulses in the rods and cones. Generate impulses in the rods and cones. Next, The photosensitive compounds, same, under the same head. Continue. I'll tell you when to change. The photosensitive compounds. The photosensitive compounds of the rods and cones are released. Of the rods and cones are released. Full stop. This results in changes in the membrane permeability of the neurons. This results in changes in the membrane permeability of the neurons. Changes in the membrane permeability of the neurons. Next head you write transmission of nerve impulse. Transmission of nerve impulse. Transmission of nerve impulse under this. As a result of the movement of ions, as a result of movement of ions in the bipolar neurons, in the bipolar neurons of retina, in the bipolar neurons of retina, action potentials, bipolar neurons of retina, action potentials generated, travel, through the optic nerve, through the optic nerve. We are talking about only this. Through the optic nerve to reach the, you get up, my dear darling, get up. Shri Ram and Tanmay. Through the optic nerve, I'll complete this and I'll come back to Tanmay. तन्मय को हर दिन 10 मिनट बाहर हवा नहीं खाएगा तो अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। नहीं तुम कुछ नहीं कर रहे, but you are irritating me. I love to teach always serious, well-behaved children. This type of behavior you must be doing in the school, that is fine, but not a very good behavior here. Both of you. I give you just two choices. I don't want to scream, I don't want to yell, I don't want to shout. I just give you two choices. Ek idhar aoge and the other one will sit at the back. This is one choice. Or both of you will go out. You choose what you want to do. Now, what is the very best strong? Urvesh, why are you writing that pen? Through the optic nerve to reach the visual cortex. To reach the visual cortex of cerebrum. To reach visual cortex of cerebrum. Last point. Interpretation by the brain. Interpretation by the brain. Interpretation by the brain. Under this you write the image formed on the retina. Image formed on the retina is inverted. Image formed on the retina is inverted, which is recognized by the cerebrum, interpreted in many ways. When we talk about interpretation in many ways, simple thing to understand, interpretation matlab, we are only talking about a whole lot of chemical changes. Something like if I talk about a molecule in one orientation, and then the orientation keeps on changing because of the change of the carbon, hydrogen. So that is what we are talking about, a whole lot of chemical changes there. And the interpretation taking place in the, what is the last slide?
Many ways.
Interpretation taking place in many ways, comma, this leads to the correction of the image as real and upright. Correction of the image as real, comma, upright, of the same size, real, upright, same size and correct distance. Real, upright, same size, correct distance. So this is when we are talking about the process of image formation. Process of image formation that generally has got certain stages. Here you are only learning about the major 4 stages. So what are the 4 stages? First of all is how the light enters. After that, what happens? How are the nerve impulse generated? Mechanism of impulse generation you don't have. You don't have to study. Like you already studied chemical transmission and physical transmission. That you don't have to study here. But the basic concept, only the basic heads. Now impulse is generated, then how does it go to the brain and what happens in the brain? Only this much you have to write. Any doubts till here? Anything that you have to clarify? So what did we study so far? The parts of the eye, mechanism of vision. Now let us go to the next part. What is the next part that we're going to talk about? Some defects of the eyeball. Let us start first of all that. Defects of the eyeball we study. And then we look into certain other conditions, certain other functions of the eyeball, certain other conditions. So first of all, we look into some defects of the eyeball. We look into some defects of the eyeball. Which are some of the defects we are going to study here? Some defects of the eyeballs that we are going to study would be, number 1, all of these are not there. You may just check. Myopia is there. We are going to talk about hyperopia there. We are going to hypermetropia, and then we talk about astigmatism there, and then what is the presbyopia? No, we talk about Giravi. These two really creating a lot of problem, I tell you. Hats off to your class teacher. How she must be tolerating both. Huh? I feel like going and meeting her and saying a big thank you for tolerating both of you. Are you both in the same section? No. Thanks. Such a pain you both are. Presbyopia or kya hai? Cataracts and that's it, no? No, night blindness is there. Night blindness is not there. Only color blindness is there, no? Night blindness is there. It's there. Color blindness. Print is not there. Print is not there. But night blindness is not there.
8, 9 is there.
Achha. Okay. No, night blindness and squint both are not there. But anyway, let us study first of all here the chart prominent. That is what we are going to look into. Whatever. Now let us go through some of the eye defects. What type of concepts you always should gather? We are first of all trying to understand that what would be some of the major conditions. What can be some problems associated with this defect? How can this be corrected? The reason for the defect, structural, functional. So that is one. The first one, when we look into myopia, let us start with this. First of all, if I look into this type of a condition, this is the normal condition of the eyeball. What is the normal condition of the eyeball? No structure there. No structural defect. Now, there is no structural defect. What do we understand? No structural defect. Adequate distance between the lens and the retina. That is very, very important. There has to be an adequate distance, optimum distance between the lens and the retina. Then only the light rays falling on the first few parts of the eye will get converged to fall on a specific region of the retina. If there is a structural defect, then this convergence on the fovea will not happen, and then starts some type of a problem. So which are some of the prominent parts of the eye? Which are some of the parts of the eye which lead to defects? Either there is a problem in the shape of the lens. Even if there's a shape in the defect in the shape of the lens, that may result in certain problems. If the shape of the eyeball is not exactly the normal size, meaning if the shape of the eyeball is a little bit longer or shorter, not optimum, then also it may result in certain type of problems. If there is a problem with a little bit of a uneven shape of the cornea, uneven convergence of the cornea, that also can relate to some problems. So prominent parts of the eye which relates to some problems are the cornea, the lens, muscles of the ciliary body. These are also relating to problems there. Let us start now. So this is the normal condition of the eye, I say, where you very clearly can see that the light rays are converging on the fovea. Will this always happen? No, at times it will not. So under what condition? We talk about the first one, myopia. Underline in your book. Myopia. Also, what is it known as? Short-sightedness. Nearsightedness. Now, when we are talking about nearsightedness or short-sighted, what is the meaning of that? Nearsightedness. The person is able to see objects which are nearby and has a difficulty in viewing objects at a distance. Normally, when you talk about a person with adequate normal vision, every minute we are changing our focus actually. Every minute we change our focus. Now I may look at an object nearby. Again, I'm changing my focus to look into an object a little bit far away, especially when you are outside constantly. Every now and then we change our focus nearby and then far away, nearby and then far away. But the moment the person is having a structural defect, shape, size, length, then only this changing focus we will have a problem with. What is myopia? What is the person suffering from? Difficulty in viewing objects far away. What is the problem that the person has? There's a defect in the shape of the eyeball. The eyeball is actually a little bit longer than normal. The eyeball is little bit longer than normal. That is the reason that when you talk about the light rays which are falling on the cornea and then entering further by the way of the lens and then all this vitreous chamber, since the eyeball is longer than normal, the convergence of the light rays is happening much before the retina. Can you see here? Why is this happening? Because normally to ye yahan pe hona chahiye tha. Abhi now this person is having a structural defect and the eyeball is little bit longer than normal. Isliye convergence pehle ho ja raha hai. And because of the convergence happening in front, now what are you supposed to write? What is the defect the person suffer from? Where is the convergence of the light rays happening? It is happening in front of the retina. It is happening. Where is the convergence happening? In front of the retina. Is it not? Yes, the convergence is happening in front of the retina. We had already talked about why. So, Abhi, how can this problem be corrected? How can this problem be corrected? The problem can be corrected by allowing the convergence happen little bit later. ये जो convergence पहले हो रहा है, इसको और थोड़ा extend करके होना चाहिए. So that is what it should be. The convergence should happen little bit later. So how will the convergence happen little bit later? By using some concave lenses. And these concave lenses are always meant for diverging the light rays, allowing the light rays scatter wide out a little bit. So अगर हम यहाँ पे convex lenses use करें तो क्या होगा? The cornea is already convex, lens is already convex. उसके ऊपर क्या हम और एक convex lens लगा सकते हैं? If I add one more convex lens, perhaps the convergence will happen here. Convergence और आगे हो जाएगा. So we have to add a concave lens, and that's the reason the light rays will scatter a little bit more to converge and meet a little bit later. Concave lenses are always known for divergence, no? Convexes are always used for convergences. So this concept we have studied. So that's the reason we are talking about use a concave lens. So abhi kya ho raha hai? So these people who suffer from this problem, their glasses, kya ho gaya? Their glasses are always with a concave lens and convergence now on the fovea. If this is myopia, then let us try understanding what would be hyperopia. Tell me what is the difference you get to see here? Long sighted. So defect kya ho? What is the defect that is cannot see things clearly which is nearby, but roughly can see things which are far away. So yahan pe what is the difference in the image formation part? Beyond, matlab now that the light rays which are entering the eyeball is actually not converging only on the retina. Retina mein converge hi nahi ho raha hai. So that's the reason when this person tries to see something nearby, it's all blurred. It's all blurred. So now what's happening? The convergence of the light rays is happening much beyond. We are assuming that the convergence is happening beyond, because retina mein to koi convergence ho hi nahi raha hai. On the fovea part, there's no convergence at all. So ye convergence ko we need to bring it a little bit forward. We want the convergence of the light rays to happen a bit more early in the entire process. If I understand that there are some few seconds which take for the light rays to enter. So agar pehle agar 5 seconds mein convergence ho raha hai, so now we want the convergence to happen something earlier. So to bring the convergence little bit earlier, what should be done? Increase the convexity. Convexity ko बढ़ाना hai. So now you will understand. ये यहाँ पे myopia में what did I tell you? Structural defect. याद रखो, eyeball is longer than normal. तो यहाँ पे क्या लगता है? Shorter than normal है. People who suffer from hyperopia, they have structural defect. You are asked myopia, hyperopia, structural defect पे लिखो. Then what are you supposed to write in hyperopia, hypermetropia? The structural defect is eyeball is shorter than normal. The eyeball is little bit compressed. Length का भी लिख सकते हो, correct. So this is one major point always to remember, that we are talking about the myopia lens. Myopia, the eyeball is longer than normal. Hyperopia, eyeball is shorter than normal. So where is the light rays meeting, converging beyond? How can this be corrected now? Use concave. Concave होगा तो और पीछे चला जाएगा. Vision will be even worse. So try using a convex lens, try increasing the convexity a little bit, then perhaps this can be corrected a little bit. Yes or no? Understanding or not this too? Yes. Any problem in understanding the structural part and the image formation part? Myopia, hyperopia.
What is the position of the lens? Myopia and shape.
Shape, when you are talking about the shape, is more convex in myopia. And in case of hyperopia, what is happening? It is lesser. It is lesser. So that's the reason it is going beyond. Convergence बाद में हो रहा है ना? That's why. I said when you are talking about myopia, come again here. We are talking about myopia. तो myopia में एक तो ये है कि the shape of the eye, structure, the size, the length of the eye, bit longer. And why the convergence so early also? This is because the lens is too curved, no? The lens is more convex than normal. Convexity जो normal होनी चाहिए उससे काफी ज़्यादा है. That's the reason convergence काफी पहले हो जा रहा है. So these are the 2 points to understand. तो अभी if I say convergence यहाँ पे हो रहा है, अब अगर convergence यहाँ पे हो रहा है, that is what we get to see for hyperopia. Convergence बाहर हो रहा है ना? Convergence is happening beyond the retina. तो इसके लिए what should you write? The lens is more convex or less convex than normal? Less ना? Convexity कम है इसीलिए तो retina में converge नहीं हो पा रहा है. That's why it is going beyond. Clear है? Write 2 differences between myopia and hyperopia. What are the 2 major points I want you to write? Structure of the eyeball, shape of the lens. Column बनाओ फटाफट लिखो. Structure of eyeball, shape of lens. अगर लिख लिया है not a problem. Why red? Why red? Now, shape of the eye पे लिखो. Shape of the eye पे क्या लिखना है? Myopia. Eyeball is longer than normal. Longer मतलब front length, longer than normal. And hyperopia में eyeball is shorter than normal. Shorter, longer, we are not talking about vertical, remember, we talk about the horizontal, that's why we write front to back, horizontally, remember, we are not talking about lengthening, vertical lengthening, we are not talking about horizontal. Done, and lens में क्या लिखना है? For the lens, what you should write for myopia? Too curved, too convex. And hyperopia में क्या लिखना है? This is on. It's on again. Less convex. Okay, so this is about myopia and hyperopia. Now let us move on to astigmatism. Let us now move on to astigmatism. Now for astigmatism, if I talk about, what is the problem that people suffer from? Astigmatism, which part of the eye is majorly affected? For astigmatism, the part of the eye which is affected is cornea. Now remember, just now you can look into the cornea, which will be evenly and smoothly curved. A small dent on the cornea may give us disturbed vision. A small depression on the cornea may give us disturbed vision. Then what is this condition called? This condition is called astigmatism. क्या problem होती है लोगों को who are suffering with astigmatism? You talk about any object in front of you. वो जो object है, some parts you are able to see clear and some parts will be disturbed. Either you will see double or blurred. That is what you get to understand. Meaning, there's a particular object in front of you. Say suppose you are talking about a person, you are talking about the cupboard, you are talking about the room, you are talking about any particular object in your room also. So what is happening? The entire object you are not able to see sharp. Some parts will appear very, very clear, some parts will appear blurred. That is the major problem that people suffer from. Underline in your book also, what is the correction? Basic cylindrical lenses. With cylindrical lenses, the curvature, it is understood that with the cylindrical lenses, the dents and the depressions of the cornea can be covered up a little bit. The convexity, the dents and the depressions can be covered up a little bit. We talk about now presbyopia, quite similar like hyperopia, but when we talk about presbyopia, it is more or less associated with age. Presbyopia truly is a age-related eye problem. So, यहाँ पे which part of the eye is majorly affected? We talk about the lens. What did we understand? How is the lens, or should the lens remain flexible to allow best vision? Yes, the lens should remain flexible. Which part of the eye helps in changing the shape of the lens? The ciliary muscle always helps in changing the shape of the lens. We'll understand also one condition here now. So now that we are talking about the ciliary body which helps in changing the shape of the lens, the ciliary muscles, with age, ये जो flexibility है, ये disturbed हो जाता है. The flexibility becomes much lesser. The process of prompt muscle contraction cannot happen. So with age, when this takes place, the process of changing the shape of the lens immediately, every focus does not happen, then only we understand the person suffering from presbyopia. But what is the major problem that these people would have? They would generally have problems with distant vision, presbyopia. What is the next? We are talking about cataract. What about cataract here? Which part of the body again? Which part of the eye again? We are talking about lens, and it can be partly about the cornea also, the lens and the cornea. So when we are talking about the cornea and the lens, with reference to cataract, यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? What is the problem the person suffers? Certain parts of the image or a particular object appears blurred. Why? And can we see the person suffering from cataract? Quite often, if it is at a higher degree, we get to see also that the central transparent जो हमारा eye का region रहता है, that becomes a little bit whitish. that appears whitish. But that is for people who have been suffering from cataract for a long time and a major portion of the lungs is affected. But if I talk about a person whose lens, did I say lungs? I don't know. So now when we are talking about that the lens, if I understand that a major portion of the lens, meaning something around 60-70% is damaged, then only there would be a surgery or etc. recommended. But if it is only some 10%, 20%, 30% of it is affected, then some minor treatments are given. Some medicines also can help in. So what are we talking about is the lens loses transparency. And we have written also one concept, that is even if the lens fibers are dead, they cannot undergo the process of division and repair. A difference between these two when we talk about color blindness and night blindness. Let us first of all talk about color blindness. Just now today also we were talking about color blindness is what? What is the meaning of color blindness? Color blindness, which is a genetic disorder people are born with. People are born with color blindness. What could be the problem? These people cannot perceive the primary colors, and most of the shades appear to them as gray or black. So we can understand quite a number of them. Also, there are different forms of color blindness. You also must have come across maybe 1 out of 50 individuals, 1 out of 60 individuals, where you come across that the person maybe arguing about the color. Is that necessary? No. Now, when we are talking about a person arguing about certain color shades, maybe 10 of you must be saying that this is orange, and the person says, no, this is not orange, this is brown. So that is what we understand, that the person is not able to perceive the color very correctly. Maybe 10% talking about a light blue, and the person says that no, it is almost white. So that is why we understand that the person is not able to understand the shades of the color or the prominent color blindness. Can this be treated? No, it's a genetic disorder, cannot be treated. When we talk about night blindness, now what it is? Night blindness is a condition where the person, now say if I talk about a normal individual, normal eye, with dim light, when the intensity of the light is very low, are we able to see the objects in that room? Yes. Why? Because even in that little intensity of light, very low intensity of light, rhodopsin ban raha. But what is happening to this person who is suffering from night blindness? Very low intensity of light, or even little bit intensity of light, little bit away from normal, little bit away from normal, also he is almost blinded. Little bit away from normal, also he is blinded. And we are not talking about night. Actually, we only understand the intensity of the light. Normal se thoda sa bhi kam hai, he is not able to perceive anything because the rhodopsin nahi ban pata hai. So that is a problem. That is majorly because of some vitamin deficiency also, majorly, and that is vitamin A. So if I ask you, write one difference between color blindness, night blindness, क्या लिखोगे?
Color blindness is hereditary.
अच्छा, hereditary और क्या?
Night blindness can be
vision, or in respect to vision, what will you write? Color blindness, night blindness. Not that is in low intensities of light, in dim light, the person cannot view anything. So that is with respect to vision that you write. If I ask you presbyopia and hyperopia, one difference, what will you write? Presbyopia and hyperopia, one difference, क्या लिखना है?
presbyopia mainly caused due to old age.
हाँ, age related है. And hyperopia may happen at any age. Similarity क्या है? Focusing objects at a distance. No, so that is the difference. So remember the differences between each of these that we studied. Now, two more conditions that we have to understand, since we are talking about the eye, two more conditions that we have to understand. Let us first of all try understanding what is known as adaptation. What is the definition also you should understand? What is adaptation? What is the definition of that word? We are going to learn two concepts here. One is adaptation and accommodation. So let us start with adaptation. What is adaptation? There can be two types of adaptation. One is known as light adaptation. One is known as light adaptation. Some major differences. Try to understand. We are talking about dark adaptation. Now what is it? Dark adaptation and light adaptation. Let us try understanding what are the major differences between this. Light adaptation and dark adaptation. Say suppose we try understanding which part of the eye is actually trying to look into. So when we are talking about, first of all, which part of the eye we are first of all to understand? The lens and also the pupil playing a major role here. So what is the meaning of this word? Light adaptation means what? Light adaptation means we are trying to get accustomed to bright light. How do we get accustomed to bright light? Say suppose whenever there is too much of light, we always tend to blink, we always tend to close our eyes, start blinking. Why do we blink when the light is dazzling, when the light is bright? To cut down the excess amount of light entering the eyeball. If we did not have any property, say suppose now the blinking of the eyelids, that's why we also understand that the blinking of the eyelids are voluntary also. So now when we look into, there's so much of light and there is no blinking possible, then what would happen? The inner layers of the eye will get damaged. But now that we are able to show the process of blinking, what is the significance? Why do we blink at that time? Cut away the excess amount of light, enter only whatever is necessary, and this light, as it enters, we are able to view objects around us. Can you give me an instance when we show this light adaptation? Light adaptation, when do we get accustomed? Say suppose sunlight, excess sunlight. Say suppose you are sleeping in your room. Suddenly on the line. You are sleeping in your bedroom, and then what happens? Suddenly at 3 o'clock, your mother gets up and she switches on the lights. होता है कभी ऐसे? So at that time, do you keep on blinking? Do you have a difficult vision at that time? Yes, we have. Why? Because our eye was getting accustomed to that darkness. Suddenly, now too much of light, we are not able to open our eyelids properly, So that type of a condition would be termed as light adaptation. Let's see what happens. Then what is dark adaptation? After switching on the light, what is dark adaptation? Now that when we are talking about dark adaptation means how our eye gets accustomed to darkness. You are studying in your room. Suddenly there's a power cut. So what happens? Do you widen up your eye to see something? And initially few seconds we are blinded. There's a power cut. नहीं? Sriram ऐसे होता है? Then what happens? You tell me. And then after some time, now it is your own room. Every day you see the color of the curtain and then the chair and the sofa and the cushion cover, everything. But फिर भी, within few seconds, when you are almost opening up your eye wider, and that small amount of light tries to enter, make vision possible. But are you able to see the colors? No, we are not able to see the colors. Why? Because that much of light is not able to form eye drops and activate the cones. That much of light is not enough for activation of the cones. So let us now see what happens to the pupil size when we are talking about light and dark. So I'm talking about this is, if this is. Now what? श्रीराम आज बहुत फॉर्म में है ना, एक तो मम्मी का पर्स पूरा खाली करके लेके आया है, and on top of that I don't know what not he is doing today. अभी तुमको घर जाने के बाद पढ़ने वाला है गई. तुम पीछे जाके बैठे थे और वहां पे भी तुमको ये मिस्टीवियसनेस बंद नहीं कर सकते हो. Now, so we are talking about, first of all, this. If this is the normal size of the pupil, this is the normal size of the pupil. And then now what? If it is dim light, see here. This is what we will talk about as widening up of the pupil. Widening up of the pupil. Widening up of the pupil is necessary for white and black and white vision, not for color vision. And when we talk about bright light, this is called light adaptation. For light adaptation, what should happen? Constriction of the pupil. And for constriction of the pupil, why should we constrict our pupil? To cut down the excess light and allow vision possible. So if this is adaptation, now let us try understanding accommodation. Two different conditions. You have got two figures in your book, very, very important. Very often you will get these diagrams in your paper. Look into this. 11.4, no, that is figure 11.4, tick karo. Figure 11.4, tick karo. These diagrams you will get in your paper and questions on this. Previous, कौन सा previous? ये वाला. इसके आगे, okay. ये वाला. So now again we now talk about this. So adaptation, if you are okay with this, now we look into accommodation. What is meant by accommodation? So here, what is the definition? Accommodation. Accommodation means the ability of our eyeball to view at objects at different focus. So every time we are changing our focus, ability of our eyeball to view objects at different focus, sometimes nearby, sometimes far away. So what would happen if you are talking about a situation like this? Which part of the eye is constantly changing its shape? It is the lens. It is the lens. Now I talk about a structure something like this. Focus on the shape of the lens. Is it little bit bulged than the normal? Is it little bit more convex than the normal? Yes. So what are some of the changes that takes place in the lens when we try to see at something close by? The lens is becoming like this, more bulged. The lens is becoming more convex. And which type of muscles are responsible for this? The muscles of the iris. The muscles of the iris, the circular and the radial. Tick karo in your book. This is what you were asked also. Can you see the ciliary muscles relaxed and okay. The ciliary muscles relaxed and okay, sensory muscles are okay, underline that. Ciliary muscles relaxed. Can you see that word written there? Ciliary muscles relaxed. Figure 11.4. Underline karo, highlight karo. This is something that you should take a note. So here we are talking about the ciliary muscles. What would happen in the second diagram? First of all, I'm showing you the second first. Near vision, B. Near vision. For near vision, what is happening? For near vision, underline karo, the ciliary muscles are they are relaxed, contracted, and the suspensory ligaments are relaxed. Suspensory ligaments are relaxed, ciliary muscles are contracted. For the second diagram, for this one. So the ciliary muscle. Now can you see the suspensory ligaments? Where did we see suspensory ligaments connecting the ciliary body and the lens? And if these suspensory ligaments are relaxed, ciliary muscles would be contracted, just antagonistic. Huh? I talk about this opposite condition here. We want to see something far away. Lens less convex than normal, lens more flattened, lens more lengthened. Now, what about the ciliary muscles? Ciliary muscles are now relaxed and the suspensory ligaments are tensed. Ciliary muscles are relaxed, ciliary muscles are contracted. Suspensory muscles are relaxed, suspensory muscles are tense. So now take a note of this to underline karo. This you will be asked to write down and the changes in the shape of the lens that you see. Near vision and far away, distant vision this is. Is this clear? So here we are talking about, okay, one more thing I forgot to tell you. When we were talking about adaptation, I told you, adaptation is with reference to the muscles of the iris. Which muscles, how many types of muscles are there in the iris? Radial and circular. Okay. Look into this figure, the next figure, 11.5. 11.5. One more minute. Take a note of that. 11.5. Figure A. Can you see there? For figure A, what type of vision are we talking about? What type of adaptation are we talking about in figure A? Dim light meaning dark adaptation. So for dark adaptation, what is the feature of the circular and the radial? Take a note. Circular and radial, underline that. Circular and radial muscles, what happens? Can you see there written? The ciliary, now we are not talking about ciliary, now we are talking about the radial and the circular of the iris. Underline, the circular muscles are relaxed, dark adaptation. And radial muscles contracted. And just the opposite when you talk about light adaptation. Light adaptation. So these two concepts, highlight karke rakho, you should remember this. The next class when we meet, we are going to complete with the year and look into the reproductive system also.
Yeah.